Do you have a favourite memory of going to the cinema?
Yes, Grease was one of my favourite, only because I think Grease came out in '77, so I was a 10-year-old, and feeling the most important person ever, going past a queue that stretched, I think it was over 1.5 miles, and we walked past all the queue to the front and in because it was our cinema. And then we had special VIP seats. So on the last night I did a special charity showing when the cinema shut down, and Grease was the film I chose, because to me that epitomised, that whole era then of the late 70s, epitomised when cinema was peaking. You know, you had Grease, you had Jaws, you had Star Wars, you had the E.T., you know, and to people say my generation, a bit younger, I mean, that was just, you know, that was it. There were beautiful times, you know, it was like one long endless summer, and, you know, really good cinema films, properly done, you know, unlike these days where I think there's too many other vested interests in, when they're producing and putting out films, you know, they're thinking either of the computer game that goes with the film, the soundtrack, whereas there it was very much about the film and the film experience and making a really enjoyable film. Again, for 1.5 hours, you know, not some 3-hour monster of a film. And so, yeah, that whole era to me, you know, typified when really the cinema was peaking, you know, say for my generation. And then really since then, and then from then onwards, it was just slowly going downhill, you know. And so, yeah, so that was really sort of my favourite time. And again, it was we did a really good last show, beautiful last show, and everyone loved it. Everyone was dancing up on the stage. It was like some really bizarre rave. And so, yeah, that era then. And again, of course, when we shut down, I said to everyone they'd miss us when we're gone. And of course, they bloody did, you know. And then there was a big Facebook campaign against us to get it reopened. And shower bastards, where were they? You know, when we were open. Again, people want to walk past you and see you're open, but, you know, don't, you know, they want it all. They want cheap films, they want pirate DVDs, they want the local cinema open. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. And we see the same now in the high street. People want to do all their online shopping, they want their Amazon, they want their eBay, but they want a high street. And it doesn't work that way, you know. So, I mean, I'm hoping now that with this realisation of how much people lost when they lost their local cinema, is that the new group which are hoping to reopen here, the Plaza, you know, they'll get good local support. Because it's the kids I feel most sorry for. You know, people who can drive, they get in their car, they can go. But children, you know, with the parents, where are they going to go? And they're stuck at home, or they're stuck, you know, again, this was a safe environment. Cinema's a safe environment for kids to go to. Even young teenagers, you know, they don't have to be on the street, they don't have to be hanging around McDonald's. You know, the parent could come here, leave their kid, do a bit of shopping, they see the matinee, and then they come out, or even go to the evening show, you know, an early date. You know, where are those first dates you go on? You know, they were the perfect place, the cinema, to go on a first date. You were safe, you could have a little snog in the corner, find your dark corner. And again, they don't have that, you know, unless they're having to be, you know, driven, you know, miles away. So that's what I'm hoping, is that, you know, with this reopening, it can reignite, you know, some sort of local support, and people will appreciate it and support the cinema.
Do you still have projectors here?
No, unfortunately not. They've all been sold on. I mean, this was shut as a cinema from about 1967. So, as I said, the last 40 years were as a bingo hall, running as a bingo hall. And all the projection, all the equipment from our old cinema got sold on to auction. The only thing I kept was the cinema clock, illuminated cinema clock, which was my favourite item in the cinema, the old Regal. So we'll see that in a minute when we'll go through. I'll show you through to the office. And we've got some of we reproduced the original programme from the opening night, and we reproduced it for the closing night. And so, and we got a professional photographer come in to do nice photos as well of all the staff members, who again in themselves, they were like walking museum pieces. You know, I had staff members, ladies working for us for 40 years. You know, they remembered me from when I was a child, you know, so, and again, that was very sad. You know, it's all part of a family history gone. Sign of the times, but still sad.
And so what's the future for you?
Future for our business, unfortunately, we like they say, you know, most family businesses in either by the third generation you change or you die, you know, for 90% of them. And we changed and we got into other business interests in London, but away from the public and away from the entertainment business. And a lot of that is also to do with the way legislation has gone. You know, legislation under the last government, there were so many pieces of legislation that just made it increasingly hard for us as a small business to operate within public entertainment or the public field, or even to operate with employees, frankly, you know, so it just made it increasingly harder and less pleasant. So now our business is very much, is sort of come down to just Rena, myself, and all our business interests are out of the Cheshire now, out of the northwest, which is sad. So I mean, it'd be nice if we were, I mean, this building we're kept with, and I'm going to be kept with because it's listed. And so really, my main goal here is to kind of get this up and running as some sort of entertainment centre for the north, you know, for the local area, and to be used as a cinema, maybe as a theatre as well, somewhere that they can do pantomimes at Christmas. Maybe the local theatre group can come in as well and take on to do productions. And I think there's a real need for, you know, buildings like this within communities, which then become multifunctional and loved and have people in, because it dies out. It's like a junkie. It needs laughter. It needs people in here. It needs love, or else it dies. And you know, I can feel it dying, you know, without that. So as long as it could have the warmth of the people in all these different ways, it can only be good, and good for the town. So we're going to do what we can that can help the people who do want to become involved. You know, we're not interested in the money. You know, there is no money in this building, but it's about you know, just keeping it alive and trying to, you know, do something for the kids and the next generation as well, and or for the artists as well, to be able to create a space, you know, and make use of, you know, because as I said, from the cinema days it's gone, as a bingo hall it's gone, but maybe as a kind of a multi-use venue, you know, it can have a future. And I think it'd be nicer, rather than building a brand new sort of very anodyne, sterile building, which they seem to do these days, the council. You know, you've got a gorgeous building here, which is just crying out to be used. I mean, I'm biased, but to me it's the most beautiful building around, you know, and we always maintain it. We maintained it very well. We've always tried to, and pride ourselves on trying to keep the original features and to you know, show off the best parts of the building, as you can see from the front, from the colour schemes that we use. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, let's go and see your clock.
Let's go and see my clock. This is La Scala Runcorn. It was one of our old picture houses, was a bingo hall, now unfortunately knocked down. This was where the Beatles performed one of their first gigs outside of Liverpool. My father was a good friend of Brian Epstein and agreed to do a gig, and that was it. So you'll see that often and very much in all the Beatles books on the history. Unfortunately, it's another cinema that's bitten the dust. Over here you'll see my grandfather and great uncle. They were like the second generation, and there's my grandfather and his brother, and again they were responsible for setting up the business in the 20s, Cheshire County Cinemas. Here's one example of one of our a little small cinema clock, a posh one, and then this is my favourite one over here, which we can just get plugged in. This is the one which it was in the Regal Cinema, our last cinema operating, and I mean you can't really see as much there, but that was it. This was always beautiful up there on the light. Here, some of our original cinema posters, Charlie Chaplin, showing the Gold Rush with Charles Chaplin. And again, managing director R. Hamilton, that was my great-grandfather. And then over here, again, the pavilion, we used to have theatres as well. So we had the Pavilion Theatre in Northwich, showing films, and the Emperor's Theatre in Runcorn. That was knocked down, I think, to make way for Runcorn Bridge. So you drive over it every time you go over Runcorn Bridge. And then round here, this is a classic one. I love this. It's one of my favourite. The Pavilion, the Denville Players. And again, the Denville Players were a famous group of cinema people. And now, I just saw recently, there is a Denville Rest Home, which is where Sir Richard Attenborough is, the director, and down in London. So obviously they set up a rest home based on from these original, the Denville plays. And you can see here, this is Goldilocks. You see the three bears here. You know, looks so funny. Again, it's just another era. This era here, again, the 20s. And so again, we were doing this combination of the theatre and the cinema, and then dance hall as well. You know, so it was all the entertainments in one, really. You know, pre-television.
Are these the actors?
Yeah, and then these were the actual Denville players themselves. And so, as I said, this room here originally, although it's our office now, this was the cloakroom, used to be the hat and cloak room for, again, the posh people who'd be coming up the stairs. They would come in through one door, coats and hats left here, and then go out. I mean, again, that era when everyone had hats and coats. And, yeah, again, another era.
So did you used to go to the cinema?
In 1944.
1944?
Yep.
What did you go and see?
No, not yet. Can't remember that far back. But at the time, you used to go in through there. The expensive ones in the balcony came through the front door.